I think everybody's back. I'll continue talking a little bit more before we start practicing. And I would like to talk about energy work in Zen, both in ancient times and in modern times. So energy work. I would say that based on my experiences, we have a practice called ancestor practice in Revitalized Zen. You might have seen my video presentations about ancestor practice, which is exactly the same thing as tantric guru yoga in Buddhist Tantra. The reason I call it ancestor practice is because usually we don't speak of gurus in Zen, even though it's kind of fascinating to think that, for example, Bodhidharma, who I mentioned, who studied with a South Indian master yogi, Pragyatara, he would have addressed his guru, Pragyatara as his guru, and Pragyatara would have addressed his guru, Punyamitra, as guru. But nevertheless, I chose the term ancestor practice. So I'm coming back to Zen after many years as a tantric practitioner, as a tantric teacher, and as a so-called treasure revealer, which means that I was trained to do this, to reveal Dharma treasures in meditation, in mystical fashion. My other teacher, Terayama Roshi, was my Zen master, my heart teacher in Zen, and then I had a heart teacher in Tantra, a teacher called Sivakami, who I practiced for 3.5 years before she passed away in 2010, and she trained me as this treasure revealer, helped me to understand my karmic connections. And of course, for nearly 2 decades now, Guru Yoga has been a daily practice for me. Inviting the blessings, praying or saying mantras and inviting the blessings of, for example, Guru Padmasambhava, who is here behind me, or some other gurus. You could say that in the context of Christianity, praying to Jesus and asking Jesus' blessings is Guru Yoga. That's what it is categorically. So in my tantric work and in my tantric practice, I have received hundreds of empowerments and transmissions from non-physical Mahasiddhas. These Buddhas, fully enlightened masters who no longer are in physical body. And this is nothing uncommon. People, I have many students myself. There are many yogis and yoginis spread around the world who are committed practitioners who have such mystical experiences. What is interesting in the context of Zen is that I've looked, after many years of not really doing any Zen study, reading scriptures or texts, I've recently been reading a little bit, and it has positively surprised me that with so many of these ancient Chinese Zen patriarchs, lineage holders, they openly mention their mystical experiences. Having had like a vision of Manjushri Bodhisattva or Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Amitabha Buddha, receiving teachings and blessings. And yet, in Zen as we know it, they completely disregard any such mystical things. I say mystical because they are not really mystical. We have a Buddha nature, Buddha mind. And when we have a vision of Manjushri, Bodhisattva of wisdom, or Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, or any of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they are display of our own mind. And if we disregard them, this is a misinterpretation of there is a saying that modern Zen people repeat, that comes from Zen master Rinzai from ancient China, Lingqi, Rinzai. So Lingqi is his Chinese name, but when you read the same characters in Japanese, it's called Rinzai. So Rinzai said, it's actually a long poem, but it starts by saying that, the way how he's quoted is that if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. And again, this Lingqi's, Rinzai's saying, it's misinterpreted. It's used too much in concepts other than it was originally meant. And this has led to this, all these visions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. No, it's not part of Zen. It doesn't belong in Zen. And yet, we have ancient Zen masters who openly speak about seeing a beautiful vision of Manjushri. Not physically appearing, but energetically, non-physically. So actually, this like a historical bit of information that ancient Zen patriarchs spoke about these things, it already gives a very different idea what the experience of energetics, what energetics meant for the Zen patriarchs, and how energetics is understood in Zen Buddhism today. Completely two different worlds. And I want to add something. I actually meant to find it, Google it, to have the exact quote, but Bodhidharma's master, Pragyatara, I think I told this a week ago in our first practice session, but I'll repeat it. There is a 1,000-year-old Chinese collection of biographies of lineage holders and masters of Zen. It was collected 1,000 years ago, roughly. And it says about Pragyatara, Bodhidharma's guru, that when he was a small boy, Punyamitra, who became his teacher, Punyamitra, when he saw the boy, he instantly recognized that this was an emanation of, I should have checked it, but that he was an emanation of a bodhisattva. I think it was Manjushri, emanation of Manjushri. So, part of his mind, this young Pragyatara's mind, was Manjushri. That's what emanation means. And then Pragyatara became Punyamitra's student, studied with him for a number of years, became a master himself, then taught Bodhidharma among other students. Bodhidharma left to China, became the first Zen patriarch in China. But when Pragyatara passed away in India, it is said of him that his body disappeared into a flame. So it's not said that he died and left a corpse and there was a funeral. It said that when he died, his body disappeared into a flame. Body disappeared into a flame. And then there was no body. And for tantrics, these tantrics have heard the same story many times in relation to rainbow body and full rainbow body. And so this is written in, if you Google Pragyatara, you can find this bit of information. That's from a text in Japanese called Denkoroku. And it's been sitting in that book for 1,000 years. Denkoroku is criticized by some. Some say that this is made up stories. This is, they just needed to write something about these Zen masters, and maybe some will say that they just made this story up of Pragyatara, which might be the case. But my experience, direct experience in ancestor practice of Pragyatara, as well as his guru Punyamitra, as well as Bodhidharma, tell me that their realization, their presence is no different from tantric Mahasiddhas. That indeed they had realized what in Tantra is called rainbow body or light body. And for many years in Amrita Mandala, on the tantric side of my teaching, I have taught my students how to verify these things for themselves, because it is unacceptable to just take this information and start believing in it. The whole point of being a meditating yogi is that you study these things. How do you say in English? I can't remember the saying, but this is your toolbox. And in the beginning, you have to get to know your tools. You have to study the trade to master it. So this is how these things like Pragyatara, Bodhidharma, Sixth Patriarch Huineng, Zen Master Dogen, Zen Master Hakuin, or Tangenroshi, who I met physically, they were all attained this so-called light body or rainbow body. This term is not used in Zen, but the realization is exactly the same, according to my experience. So, back to energy work. When we understand, based on direct transmission from these Zen patriarchs, and when we understand that somebody like Pragyatara, Bodhidharma, and so on realize the full scope of emptiness and realize the full scope aliveness, thus mastering the teachings, the doctrines of that the Buddha taught in his 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma, then we can reverse engineer and understand what is necessary for the techniques and practices for us to get to the same result. And again, this result 20 years ago, last month in April 2005, I was extremely fortunate to spend time with Tangenroshi, Harada Tangenroshi, in Bukkokuchi Temple in Japan, in the city of Obama. And it took me many years to understand what I experienced in him, through him. It took me many years to understand what the man was, because he was not like other Zen teachers or even Zen masters who were regarded as great Zen masters. He was a completely different being. Completely different being. And so with the exception of him and maybe few others during the past few hundred years, the present Zen methods and all the techniques that they practice are not getting to that same realization like Bodhidharma, Pragyatara, Zen Master Dogen, and so on, Hakuin. It simply is not the case that they reached the same level of attainment, Buddhahood. And again, this is a reason why we are here in this Revitalized Zen retreat, contemplating and studying these teachings. So, to realize the full scope of emptiness, we need to have a perfect understanding of Vipassana principle. Vipassana is a Sanskrit term which literally means direct seeing. Direct seeing. There is a ancient Chinese Zen phrase called that goes in Japanese, Chiki Shin Ninjin Kensho Jo Butsu. Seeing into the true nature of man, becoming Buddha. This phrase, ancient Zen phrase, and Vipassana is speaking of the same thing. So, seeing true nature. Becoming Buddha through seeing one's true nature. But the problem in today's Zen is that it's too caught up with the method that is believed to. There is something strange that happens. It's the same thing in Tibetan Buddhism. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are these preliminary practices. 500,000 repetitions of certain mantras, 100,000 mantras, 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 this, 100,000 that. Like 500,000 repetitions of different techniques, and it is a misunderstanding. It is simply historically incorrect to say that this set of preliminary practices have always been used since Padmasambhava's times or something like that. No, they weren't. This preliminary practice system was established about 200 years ago. Of course, people practiced Vajrasattva mantras and did prostrations before that, but as this set of preliminary practices, this was systematized 200 years ago. And in the same fashion, in Zen side, there is this belief that the koan training system always existed like it exists today. Or another from the Soto Zen circles is that, which is very recent actually, people believe that Soto Zen, Zen Master Dogen's, in Zen Master Dogen's tradition, they always emphasize this shikantaza, just sitting meditation. And yes, it has had a central role, but by all means, there was much more to Zen Master Dogen's method than sitting 12 hours a day and not doing much anything else. This interpretation that just sitting would be enough as a method is very recent. There was this Japanese Zen master in last century called Kodo Sawaki Roshi, who started this movement in last century, like literally like less than 100 years ago, who started this movement that you only need to do this just sitting, and a recitation of sutras, prostrations, pilgrimages, all these things are of less importance or not necessary at all. So people tend to create religions out of these things. And when that happens, the baby is lost with the bathwater. It definitely is the case. But again, if we want to attain Buddhahood and we understand the doctrine, emptiness and aliveness, and we understand how emptiness, aliveness relates to the subtle bodies, and we understand the transmissions that if we do ancestor practice with Buddha Shakyamuni, with Pragyatara, Bodhidharma, Zen Master Hakuin, and so on, we can understand that, okay. Now the picture is coming clear. Now we can see how the dots connect. But if we are lost, like in Rinzai Zen Buddhism today, there is this, not everybody, not all do this koan practice. It's kind of, koans are these sometimes just short poems, sometimes unrational riddles, but not everybody is doing koan training, but most in Rinzai Zen Buddhism do that training. So, well, maybe it is sufficient to say that there are no signs in those who do the full koan curriculum of 1700 koans, which takes in most cases 15-20 years or more to finish, but there is no actual sign that this koan training would effectively result in the realization of emptiness or aliveness. In fact, it is the opposite. The signs of successful Dharma practice are completely absent. Usually, if Terayama Roshi was the one who first really taught me energetical analysis, which later I learned more about it from my tantric masters, and learned about reading bhumis, reading about stages of awakening in myself and in others. You know, it is usually the case that when somebody who graduates as a Rinzai Zen Buddhist teacher, that they have had 2 or 3 awakening experiences during their 20 or 25 years of full-time formal training. 2 or 3 openings on average. This is still a beginner stage. In terms of maturity in emptiness practice, this is still beginner stage. So again, people get fooled by, authorization, robes, the temples, the paraphernalia. But in terms of realization, still a beginning stage. And this was again, the very reason why my Zen master, Terayama Roshi, who went through the 1700 koans with under Omurisogen Roshi, became his Dharma heir, but then met deeply realized yogis and masters in India and Nepal. He realized that, oh, despite of being a Dharma heir to one of the most famous Japanese Zen masters of the last century, being a Zen teacher who finished the whole training thing, not much depth at all. That's why he chose not to continue the Rinzai Zen lineage. So when he asked me to teach, he didn't ask me to teach koans or Rinzai Zen Buddhism. I never, my experience, well, I have plenty of experience, but, a few years of formal training is just the beginning in Rinzai Zen training. I never began koan training. And I was really fortunate that I didn't. But my point is that Terayama Roshi also saw that it is not effective. And it isn't. I can say from my experience of reading the bumis of maybe few hundred Zen teachers from Soto and Rinzai, from West and East, alive today, and from photographs. And again, this is something that I have taught for many years in Amrita Mandala, and it will be a central part in Revitalized Zen also. All these things need to be verified from everybody personally. Okay. So energy work. I realized, well, I'll just keep talking because these are very important points that I need to explain. And also people who see these videos later in YouTube, in these lessons, they need to know these things. So I simply need to explain. But my first point of this discussion is that there are practices that go directly to the heart of the problem. In the heart of the problem, we also find the heart of the solution. But, there are so many techniques and practices and systems of practice that are doing something, and we can engage with all these projects and doing something, but this doing something might be only little relevant to actual awakening, or it can be completely irrelevant to awakening. So this point needs to be understood. Continuing a little bit about making my point clearer. So Zen Master Hakuin, have you heard the name? Zen Master Hakuin? He lived from maybe like 1686 until 1768, I believe. So a Japanese Zen master of the Rinzai Linchi lineage. And when he was 24, he became a Zen monk when he was 15 years old. And when he was 24, so 9 years after he first became a monk, he developed this Zen bio, which means Zen sickness. And I will read a quote from his autobiography. His autobiography is called Wild Ivy. You can get it in English. So A few sentences. With my teeth clenched tightly and my eyes focused straight ahead, I began devoting myself single-mindedly to my practice, forsaking food and sleep altogether. Before the month was out, my heart fire began to rise upward against the natural course, parching my lungs of their essential fluids. My feet and legs were always ice cold. They felt as though they were immersed in tubs of snow. There was a constant buzzing in my ears as if I were walking beside a raging mountain torrent. I became abnormally weak and timid, shrinking and fearful in whatever I did. I felt totally drained, physically and mentally exhausted. Strange visions appeared to me during waking and sleeping hours alike. My armpits were always wet with perspiration. My eyes watered constantly. I traveled far and wide, visiting wise Zen teachers, seeking out noted physicians. But none of the remedies they offered brought me any relief. Then the story goes on. He wanders around and tries to find somebody who can help him in the middle of these energetic problems, and he doesn't know what is going on. He's sweating, he's feeling cold, he's seeing strange visions, like you heard. And then somebody tells him about this Taoist master, Master Hakuin, who lives on this mountain. And then young Hakuin of 24 years old climbs the mountain and is finally able to find the guy, this Taoist hermit. So Taoist hermit in Japan. And then they have a little chat, and then Hakuin says, "Oh, you have to learn this technique." And Hakuin teaches him, I believe it's Naikan ho in Japanese. It's in English, soft butter method. So the Taoist master, Hakuin, writes that I traveled far and wide, visiting wise Zen teachers, seeking out noted physicians, but none of the remedies they offered brought me any relief. And then he meets Taoist master Hakuin, who teaches him this soft butter method, where you visualize like an egg made of butter on your head, and you simply imagine how that butter warms up and starts melting on the skin and on the inside of the body, this pleasant, warm butter flowing through the body from up to down. Tada! Hakuin is healed after some time of doing that. But I think there is some very precious lesson here. He says, I traveled far and wide. He's been a monk for 9 years. 9 years, almost 10. Visiting wise Zen teachers. But none of the remedies they offered brought me any relief. What Hakuin is telling of his state, perspiration, not being able to sleep, weird visions, weird experience, uncomfortable. I've treated this many times with people who've come to me over the years. This Zen sickness is simply imbalance in vital energy, pranic problems, prana problems. In Japanese you would say ki, problems with ki energy. And I have many people over the years have contacted me, told me of their symptoms, and they are always very easy to solve. Always. But young Hakuin traveled far and wide, visiting known Zen teachers, and they didn't know. They didn't know since Hakuin's time. It's like this happened in 1710, so it's 315 years ago. But it's the same, pretty much same situation today. So again, energy work, how does it all work? This know-how isn't really widely present in Zen as we know today. I have another example of this, but that I will tell you in a moment. But you know, these key problems or pranic imbalance develops if the most basic practices of most basic prayers is not properly understood. We already did this in a week ago when we had the shikantaza, just sitting, as bodhicitta, or bodhicitta as shikantaza. We already touched on this precious point. So in Zen Buddhism there are bodhicitta prayers, bodhisattva vows, chanting of sutras, dedication of merit. There are, long passages of different Mahayana sutras, such as the Lotus Sutra, Diamond Sutra, are chanted. Okay, this is done on daily basis. And yet, Zen practitioners, not only Hakuin, I've known so many Zen practitioners who come up with energetic problems that persist, prevent them from sleeping well. Their health is health problems of different types, imbalances, because the prana circulates wrongly. Why? If we are chanting these bodhicitta prayers, bodhisattva vows, all these sutras and so on, we would expect that there is some kind of pure power, divine power, an element that would prevent us from having the same kind of energy problems that common samsaric people have. So this is something that feeling energies, perceiving energies, this is something that we do differently in Revitalized Zen, because when we chant something simple as "May all beings be free," one short sentence 3 times, it carries an energy. It immediately opens up, creates pure energy that opens up our own, makes us own Buddha nature reveal itself. If we chant the Heart Sutra, which is really over chanted in Zen Buddhism, Heart Sutra in the temple back in the day, we must have chanted it 10 or 15 times a day, every day. But whether it's Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, Lotus Sutra, short Avalokiteshvara prayer, Bodhicitta, Bodhisattva, dedication of merit, anything, there is a charge, there is a blessing there. And I'm just making this point clear, what I started making in lesson 1 a week ago, that there is always a blessing there. But if it is not taken in, if it is not felt, if it is disregarded, then your mind, your energetics will stay in the samsaric mode, and you will have same problems as non-practitioners have. This is what happened to young Zen master Hakuin. Well, Zen monk Hakuin. Then he went to see this Taoist hermit. In Wild Ivy, it is said that he was over 300 years old. Well, maybe a little exaggeration, but he went to meet this specialist who could say immediately, oh, it's just your system is going haywire. So you simply need to balance it. Kind of like if we have a cloth that is wrinkled, you smooth it out with hot iron. And then it becomes smooth. Same exactly can potentially be accomplished every time when these basic prayers are chanted. In any Zen group, in any temple. And I think that because this is not the case, people have this problem, people do not connect with the blessings of the lineage holders. This is something that I've discussed many times in my YouTube videos. It is simply wrong. It is simply wrong. But the nature of our practice changes immediately when we start feeling, perceiving, and taking in blessings and energies that are always present anyway. So that's a very important point of energy work, and I will continue a little bit. I realize that we are getting closer to meal break, but we have plenty of time, and hopefully it's not too much of a burden to listen my lectures. So hopefully you get a lot out of this. But another thing I wanted to speak is dark night phenomena. In Dharma, in general, in Zen in particular. So dark night is a universal phenomena for all meditators. Dark night is a dark night of the soul. It's a term from, I believe it's Saint John of the Cross, like a Christian mystic, Christian terminology that has been taken by, would you say, culturally appropriated by Buddhists. I'm making a little joke. I don't take this cultural appropriation thing seriously at all. But so this term, dark night, is used by Buddhists these days. And there's actually in Hinayana they call it dukkha jnana, dark night. And it means that it cannot be avoided. Whatever we are practicing, whatever our method is, there will be periods when the way how it works is that, okay, we are sitting there and doing some form of practice. And this means that because we are becoming more and more mindful, more and more aware of our subconscious mind, it means that the light of awareness or light of mindfulness reaches places where it didn't reach before, which consequentially means that when light hits areas in our subconscious mind where the light didn't reach before, the stuff that is stored in the subconscious mind comes to the fore, comes to the foreground. And this means that there can be causes of depression, causes of anxiety, causes of anger, hatred, rage, fear, debilitating fear, all of these things can come up and do come up. And when that wave, that dark wave, when it hits us, of course, it feels very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Suddenly you have so much rage, hatred, or suddenly you're so scared. And it makes you feel so uncomfortable. And when it lasts like a lengthy period of time, let's say from days to months, it's called categorically dark night. So this happens in all systems, to all kinds of meditators. Unfortunately, this is not spoken, not even close to enough so that people would know that this is natural. And there are so many awful stories of this, what happens to people because the demons from their own subconscious mind comes up and they are overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. Some of them start blaming themselves. This is my fault. Some of them starts blaming the teacher. Some of them start blaming the tradition. And many of these people who don't know what is happening, they leave practice altogether. Some of them start taking medication to deal with this depression or anxiety or whatever it is, because they don't know how to deal with it. But this is very natural part of any meditative yogic path. And the way how to deal with it is very simple. Strengthen your bodhicitta, take bodhisattva vows, take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and meet it. Simply remain mindful, remain aware of whatever comes up. In the best of your ability, remain aware of it. If necessary, do a number of shouts. In Revitalized Zen we use dynamic concentration, so we do these shouts, which is immensely helpful when dealing with dark nights, making the processing of them much shorter than without shouts. But then you just sit and you take it. You don't fight it, you don't run away from it. You take it in with your whole body. And this is the most difficult thing to do. In all of practices, this is the most difficult thing to do. When you have a proper dark night, it will make you shake, it will make you lose stability. And then the most difficult thing to do is to regain stability, to regain your center. Come back to your center and keep meeting it. Keep absorbing the pain. But what happens, when we have a eruption of lava in Tulivuori, volcano, eruption of a volcano, and it's spitting this burning lava, pew, pew, pew. And when that lava, what happens to it when it flows to sea? No matter how hot the lava is, I don't even know how hot it is, 5,000 degrees, I don't know. But when it flows into sea, into ocean, it will make some of the water boil. But sooner or later it will pacify. The heat of anger, depression, anxiety, whatever, sadness, grief, will disperse, dissipate. And then we have integrated this part of the subconscious mind that was held by anger, depression, anxiety, whatever. That part of the subconscious mind is now a part of our true body. Instead of remaining separate from our true body, it becomes an embodiment of Buddha nature. I remember a friend from the temple 20 years ago. Let's say that his name was Tensan. It wasn't Tensan, but I changed his name. And he was a young monk. I actually just recently got in touch with him to check out the facts after 20 years. But I remember, he had become a monk 4 years before. And he had started training in the temple 6 years before this happened. So Tensan was a young, aspiring Zen monk, got ordained 4 years before. And then I remember, in a Rinzai Zen monastery, in the meditation hall, you have these rows. You sit facing each other in these long rows, so you see everybody sitting. And I remember seeing Tensan, like I was very young. I was completely wet behind the ears back then. Didn't know anything. But I could very easily see that seeing him sitting there, I could see that he's sitting in agony. In agony. In real pain. He wasn't like in traditional Rinzai you hold your hands like this, and he just had his hands like on his lap, like he was in so much pain, like completely eaten alive by these dark waves of dark night, not knowing what to do with it, not knowing how to deal with it. And this pain was eating him alive day after day after day. And this kept going for many weeks. And I didn't think much about it. I probably think the arrogant little prick I was back then, pardon my French, I probably thought that, oh, he's just weak, he's not practicing properly. But in retrospect, I realized that he was having a dark night. Struggling with it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the way how it ended is that, he was a really inspired young Zen monk. He was willing to spend his life as a Zen monk. But then one day he had enough and he left. Never returned, left Zen practice, never returned to the temple. And here again, just like a young Zen monk Hakuin, still when he became a Zen master and a really famous teacher, when he was over 70 years old, he spoke about this, what happened with the Taoist hermit Hakuin, and how it changed his view and his life. But this friend, Tenzan, he never got that help. The Zen master of the temple didn't have sufficient understanding of what he was experiencing, and therefore couldn't give any other advice except keep practicing. Which didn't deal with the problem at all, didn't solve the problem. And from one perspective, you could say that the Zen master, the tradition, not having the sufficient know-how to deal with it, messed up this young monk's life, messed up his plans, you know. And it's understanding the phenomenon of dark night. It really should be something that all teachers, Zen or otherwise, should understand and be able to help anybody just so easily. It happens to everybody. So how it is possible that a so-called time-tested tradition doesn't understand what to do with it? How is it possible? So this is something that knowing how little this is discussed in traditional Dharma, leaving many people in trouble. This is something that I have spoken from day one since I started teaching, and this is something that Revitalized Zen practitioners also need to know and understand. That there are these periods of really rough patches, rough periods that test you, but this is supposed to happen. And then you speak about it with your teacher, and you follow the advice of the teacher, do the practices that are recommended, meet the dark waves one after the other, and then there will come a moment when suddenly the waves don't come anymore. And then this rough patch, when you come out of it, it is followed by kind of like in sea when you're sailing, there can be storms, thunderstorms, big waves. Boat is being thrown left and right. Poof, huge winds, storm winds. But then one moment, no matter how long it seems to continue, one moment the sea becomes calm again. And then sooner or later, it starts over again. But that's how it is. It is circular. It repeats like that, literally up until the point when the first three stages are finished, Kensho, Satori Daigo, and Buddhahood is attained. This is simply the nature of the practice. So I wanted to speak, my apologies, it's been over 2 hours I've been talking, but we've covered very important points that we do differently in Revitalized Zen, and I think this is a logical point to take a meal break. So maybe we will sit just 10-15 minutes to give at least an impression that we are meditators. So let's sit a little bit and then take a meal break and then start proper practice after meal. So let's sit together. Always for the sake of all sentient beings. With whole being, for the freedom and happiness of all beings. Simple bodhicitta sitting for about 10 minutes. like I taught in lesson 1, you can generate bodhicitta every few minutes, every 5 minutes or something like that, to really open up the body and the subtle bodies. And then you simply sit, feel, and remain aware of the experience of bodhicitta. chant the short bodhicitta prayer. May all beings be free 3 times. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. Always after chants and prayers, feel the energy of the prayer, of the mantra. Feel it. Let your body feel it. Not think about it, but feel it. Joining hands. And then stretch a little, just like when waking up from a brilliant nap. Okay. It's now 5:30 local time. Let's take a meal break for hour and 15 minutes. Hour and 15. So continuing 6:45 local time. Okay. See you then. Thank you very much. Enjoy your meal.